There are situations where something as simple as drinking water becomes a medically observed decision rather than a routine habit. In emergency care environments, dehydration is not only about how much fluid the body loses, but also how the body responds when that fluid is reintroduced. According to clinical guidance, the method, timing, and even conditions surrounding hydration can influence recovery outcomes in ways that are often overlooked. But here's the question. When someone is already dehydrated, can drinking very cold water actually affect how the body recovers? Or is this just a widely misunderstood belief? Let me know your answer in the comments below. According to widely accepted medical research, dehydration occurs when the body experiences a net loss of fluids, disrupting its normal physiological balance. This loss can result from various factors, including prolonged exposure to heat, physical exertion, illness, or insufficient fluid intake over time. Public health organizations, including global and national health agencies, describe dehydration as a condition that can range from mild to severe, depending on the extent of fluid loss and the underlying cause. In its early stages, dehydration may present with symptoms that are easy to ignore, such as thirst, dry mouth, fatigue, or reduced urine output. Because these symptoms are relatively common, individuals often assume that rehydration is straightforward. Simply drink water and the problem resolves. However, according to emergency medicine references, the situation becomes more complex when dehydration progresses beyond mild levels. As fluid loss increases, the body begins to adjust in ways that are not always immediately noticeable. Blood volume may decrease, causing the heart to work harder to maintain circulation. The body's ability to regulate temperature can become impaired, particularly in hot environments. Electrolyte levels, such as sodium and potassium, may begin to shift, affecting muscle function and nerve signaling. In more advanced cases, symptoms can include dizziness, confusion, rapid heartbeat, and a measurable drop in blood pressure. These changes indicate that the body is no longer operating under normal conditions. This is where hydration strategy becomes important. According to clinical observations, rehydration is not simply a matter of replacing lost fluid. It involves restoring balance in a controlled and effective way. Medical guidelines often emphasize gradual fluid intake, particularly in cases of moderate to severe dehydration. This approach allows the body to absorb fluids more efficiently and reduces the likelihood of discomfort or complications. At this point, a commonly discussed question arises. Does the temperature of the water matter? In everyday situations, most individuals do not consider water temperature as a significant factor. Cold water is often preferred because it feels refreshing, especially in warm conditions. In many cases, it may even encourage increased fluid intake, which can be beneficial. However, certain observations in medical and sports-related contexts suggest that temperature may play a role under specific conditions. According to some clinical reports, individuals who are significantly dehydrated, particularly after heat exposure or prolonged exertion, may experience temporary discomfort when consuming large amounts of very cold water rapidly. This can include sensations such as stomach cramping, nausea, or a feeling of sudden internal discomfort. It is important to note that these responses are not universal. From one interpretation, the body's reaction is influenced by its current physiological state. When dehydration is advanced, blood flow may be prioritized toward essential organs and the skin for temperature regulation, potentially reducing efficiency in the digestive system. Another perspective suggests that rapid intake, regardless of temperature, may be the more significant factor, with cold water simply amplifying the sensation due to its contrast with the body's internal temperature. This distinction is critical because the idea that cold water is harmful does not fully align with most medical evidence. Instead, the issue appears to be more closely related to how water is consumed rather than what temperature it is. This is for informational purposes only and not medical advice. Another element that contributes to confusion is the role of thirst. According to physiological research, thirst is not an early warning system. It is a response that occurs after the body has already begun to lose a certain amount of fluid. This means that by the time a person feels intense thirst, dehydration may already be present. In response to that sensation, individuals often drink quickly. From a behavioral standpoint, this reaction is understandable. The body signals a need, and the individual responds immediately. However, according to hydration studies, rapid consumption of large volumes of fluid can sometimes lead to discomfort, particularly when the body is already under stress. In some cases, this may result in a reduced ability to continue drinking, which can slow overall rehydration. From another perspective, gradual intake, small amounts consumed consistently over time, may allow for more efficient absorption and better tolerance. This approach is commonly recommended in both medical and survival contexts. It reflects a broader principle found in many areas of physiology. The body often responds more effectively to steady input than to sudden extremes. Still, the question remains unresolved for many people. If cold water is not inherently dangerous, why does the warning against it persist? To answer that, it becomes necessary to examine not just medical data, but also how information is communicated and understood. In many cases, health-related advice is simplified as it spreads beyond clinical environments. A guideline intended for specific conditions may gradually become a general rule. For example, a recommendation such as drink fluids slowly and avoid extremes during dehydration may be interpreted over time as never drink cold water. This transformation is not unusual. According to communication studies, complex information is often simplified to improve recall and ease of use. However, this simplification can sometimes lead to loss of context. When context is removed, the original meaning may change. And in health-related topics, that change can influence behavior. From a legal and public health perspective, this raises important considerations. Guidelines are designed to reduce risk across a wide population. They are often written to account for variability in conditions, individual health, and access to resources. At the same time, individuals applying these guidelines may not always have full information about their own situation. This gap between guidance and application can lead to misunderstanding, and in some cases, it can lead to decisions that are based on incomplete or oversimplified interpretations. As this topic continues to be explored, it becomes clear that the issue is not as straightforward as it may initially appear. It is not simply a question of whether cold water is safe or unsafe. It is a question of context, behavior, and physiological response. Because in many real-world situations, outcomes are influenced by multiple factors acting together. Water temperature, rate of consumption, level of dehydration, environmental conditions, and individual tolerance. Each of these elements contributes to how the body responds, and understanding their interaction is key to making informed decisions. As we move forward, the next section will examine documented observations in real-world scenarios where hydration practices, both effective and ineffective, have been recorded. Because it is often in these situations that the gap between theory and reality becomes most visible, and where small decisions can have meaningful consequences. As we move from general medical understanding into real-world observations, the discussion begins to shift from theory to documented patterns. Because in many cases, it is not the guideline itself that reveals the full picture, but how individuals actually behave in situations involving dehydration. According to emergency response summaries and field reports, dehydration-related incidents often follow a similar progression. Individuals begin with mild symptoms that appear manageable. These may include fatigue, slight dizziness, or a sense of dryness that does not immediately seem urgent. At this stage, hydration is often delayed. From one perspective, this delay occurs because the symptoms do not yet interfere significantly with normal activity. People continue walking, working, or exercising, assuming they will address the issue shortly. However, as time progresses, especially in warm or physically demanding conditions, the body continues to lose fluids. According to occupational health data, individuals exposed to heat can lose significant amounts of fluid through sweating, sometimes without fully recognizing the extent of that loss. This is particularly true in environments where sweat evaporates quickly, reducing visible signs of fluid depletion. As dehydration progresses into a moderate stage, additional symptoms begin to appear. These may include headaches, increased heart rate, reduced concentration, and a noticeable decline in physical performance. In some documented cases, individuals report difficulty making decisions or maintaining focus. This cognitive component is significant, because as dehydration affects mental clarity, it can influence the decisions people make about their own hydration. For example, according to survival training reports, individuals in outdoor environments sometimes choose to conserve water by drinking less than needed. While this may seem logical, it can reduce both physical and cognitive function, making it more difficult to locate additional resources or navigate effectively. Another commonly observed behavior is delayed rehydration, followed by rapid intake. Once symptoms become more intense, individuals may attempt to compensate by drinking large amounts of water in a short period of time. This response is driven by strong thirst signals and a desire for immediate relief. From a physiological standpoint, this is where complications can arise. According to clinical observations, the digestive system may not always respond efficiently to sudden, large volumes of fluid, particularly when the body is already under stress from dehydration. In some cases, this can lead to discomfort such as bloating or nausea. When the water consumed is very cold, the sensation may be more noticeable. From one interpretation, the contrast between the body's internal temperature and the cold fluid may create a temporary response that feels more intense. This does not necessarily indicate harm, but it may affect how comfortably the individual can continue drinking. Another perspective suggests that rapid intake itself is the primary factor, with temperature acting as a secondary influence. In either case, the result can be similar. The individual drinks quickly, experiences discomfort, and then slows or stops further intake. This pattern can interfere with effective rehydration. According to sports medicine guidelines, maintaining consistent and moderate fluid intake is generally more effective than consuming large amounts at once. This approach supports steady absorption and reduces the likelihood of adverse reactions. Another factor observed in real-world scenarios is the role of expectation. If an individual believes that cold water will immediately solve dehydration, they may rely on it as a quick solution, rather than adopting a gradual approach. When the expected relief does not occur instantly, or is accompanied by discomfort, it may lead to confusion about what is happening. From a behavioral perspective, this can influence future decisions. Some individuals may begin to associate cold water with negative effects, even if the underlying issue was related to intake speed or severity of dehydration. Others may ignore the discomfort and continue drinking rapidly, potentially worsening the situation. This variation highlights an important point. Human responses to dehydration are not purely physiological. They are also influenced by perception, prior experience, and understanding. According to research in human performance and decision-making, individuals under physical stress may rely more heavily on instinct than on structured reasoning. This can lead to actions that feel correct in the moment but are not optimal for recovery. In hydration scenarios, this often translates to reactive behavior rather than planned response. From a broader perspective, this pattern appears across multiple types of incidents. In occupational settings, workers exposed to heat may delay hydration due to workload demands, then attempt to recover quickly during short breaks. In recreational environments, hikers or travelers may underestimate their water needs, leading to sudden and urgent attempts to rehydrate. In athletic contexts, individuals may push beyond their limits before addressing hydration, resulting in a similar cycle. Across these situations, the sequence remains consistent: delay, progression of symptoms, rapid response, and sometimes complications during rehydration. This is where the discussion of cold water becomes relevant, not as a standalone issue, but as part of a larger pattern. Because the question is not simply whether cold water is safe, it is whether the way it is used aligns with how the body functions during dehydration. From a medical standpoint, most evidence suggests that the body benefits from controlled, steady rehydration. This includes not only water intake but also consideration of electrolytes and environmental conditions. In cases involving significant fluid loss, health authorities often recommend solutions that contain balanced electrolytes, as these help restore the body's internal equilibrium more effectively than water alone. While temperature may influence comfort and preference, it is not typically identified as the primary determinant of hydration success. However, when combined with other factors, such as rapid intake or severe dehydration, it may influence how the body responds in the short term. From a legal and public safety perspective, this reinforces the importance of clear and accurate guidance. Individuals rely on available information to make decisions in critical moments. If that information is incomplete or oversimplified, it may not fully support effective action. This is why many official guidelines emphasize principles rather than rigid rules. Drink regularly, respond early, avoid extremes, monitor symptoms. These recommendations are designed to apply across a wide range of scenarios, allowing individuals to adapt based on their specific conditions. As this analysis continues, the focus begins to shift toward a deeper understanding of the body's internal processes. What exactly happens when dehydration affects circulation, digestion, and temperature regulation? And how does the body respond when fluids are reintroduced under different conditions? Answering these questions can provide a more precise explanation of why certain hydration strategies are recommended and why others may lead to less effective outcomes. because ultimately the goal is not just to avoid mistakes, it is to understand the mechanisms behind them. And that understanding can make the difference between a reaction that feels right and one that actually supports recovery. As we reach the final stage of this investigation, the focus shifts from observed behavior and public understanding to the actual physiological mechanisms inside the human body during dehydration and rehydration. Because to fully understand the debate around cold water, it is necessary to separate perception from biological process. According to medical physiology references, dehydration affects the body in several interconnected ways. The most immediate impact is on blood volume. As fluid levels drop, blood becomes more concentrated, which can reduce circulation efficiency and place additional strain on the cardiovascular system. At the same time, the body begins prioritizing essential functions. Blood flow is directed toward vital organs such as the brain and heart, while less critical systems, such as digestion, may temporarily receive reduced circulation. This is an important point in understanding how the body reacts to fluid intake during dehydration. Because when someone drinks water, regardless of temperature, that fluid enters a system that is already under adaptive stress. From one perspective, this means the body may process fluids differently depending on its current state. Another perspective, supported by sports medicine observations, suggests that during heat stress or physical exhaustion, the digestive system may temporarily become more sensitive, affecting comfort levels during rapid fluid intake. This is where cold water becomes part of the discussion. According to available clinical evidence, cold water does not inherently damage the body in dehydration. However, the sensation of cold fluid entering a stress system may feel more intense in certain individuals, particularly when intake is rapid. This sensation is sometimes described in physiological literature as a temporary thermoregulatory response. In simple terms, the body is adjusting to a sudden change in temperature while already managing fluid imbalance. However, it is important to emphasize that this response is generally short-term and not considered harmful in healthy individuals. This is for informational purposes only and not medical advice. The more consistent finding across medical guidelines is not related to temperature itself, but to hydration behavior. Specifically, how fast fluids are consumed, how much is consumed at once, and whether intake is continuous or irregular. According to hydration research, the body tends to absorb fluids more efficiently when intake is steady and gradual. This allows for better regulation of blood volume, electrolyte balance, and digestive processing. When fluids are consumed too quickly, the stomach may temporarily slow processing, which can lead to discomfort. This effect can occur with both cold and room temperature fluids, although cold temperature may increase perception of that discomfort in some cases. From a legal and public health perspective, this distinction is important, because many simplified health messages circulate in public spaces without full context. Statements such as, "never drink cold water when dehydrated," often originate from attempts to simplify complex physiological guidance. But in doing so, nuance is reduced, and as a result, public understanding may shift from conditional advice to absolute belief. According to communication studies in public health, this transformation is common when scientific information is shared outside of medical contexts. Over time, caution-based recommendations may become generalized rules. This does not necessarily indicate misinformation. It reflects how human communication naturally evolves. However, it does highlight a key issue. Simplification improves clarity, but can reduce precision. And precision matters when dealing with physiological conditions like dehydration. Because the human body does not respond in absolute terms. It responds based on variables, environment, severity of dehydration, rate of fluid loss, individual tolerance, and method of recovery. Each of these factors influences the outcome, which means that hydration strategies must be flexible rather than rigid. From one perspective, cold water can be safely consumed during dehydration in most situations. From another perspective, in cases of severe physical stress, gradual intake, regardless of temperature, may support better comfort and absorption. Both perspectives can be true depending on context, and that is the key point often missing from simplified public discussions. As we bring this investigation to a close, the central conclusion becomes clearer. The debate is not truly about whether cold water is good or bad. It is about understanding how the body functions under stress and how behavior influences recovery. Because in real-world scenarios, outcomes are rarely determined by a single factor. They are shaped by combinations of physiology, environment, and decision-making. And in the case of dehydration, timing and method often matter more than temperature alone. So rather than focusing on absolute rules, the more accurate approach is awareness. Recognizing early symptoms, responding before dehydration becomes severe, and consuming fluids in a controlled and consistent manner. These principles align with most clinical and emergency guidelines, and they apply across a wide range of situations. At the end of the day, the question is not just about cold water, it is about how we understand our own body under stress. Because small decisions, made in moments of discomfort or urgency, can influence recovery more than we often realize. Given all the facts, do you think most people misunderstand dehydration recovery? Or is the science already clear enough and just not followed properly? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this investigation helpful and want more deep, fact-based breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so you don't miss the next video. Also, let me know in the comments what topic you want next. Your suggestion might become the next full investigation. Thanks for watching. Stay informed, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.